Something moved beneath the Dead Sea. Not a ripple, not a tremor, a pulse. Archaeologists dismissed it. Scientists laughed it off. Even theologians called it symbolic. But now, something beneath the Dead Sea is stirring. In one of the most lifeless places on Earth, fresh water is breaking through salt-cracked ground. Fish are swimming where nothing should survive. The very soil is breathing. What began as a whisper in ancient scrolls has become a global phenomenon. Sinkholes, seismic pulses, unexplainable light patterns, and buried beneath the silence, a warning, older than any empire. Before we go any deeper, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button. Because what you're about to witness isn't just science, it's the possible fulfillment of prophecy in real time. It started quietly. A shepherd walking near Ein Gedi noticed the earth beneath him crack, not with heat, but with moisture. Not one fissure, but hundreds. From the arid soil, pools began to emerge, not puddles, freshwater springs. Scientists were dispatched within days. What they found defied everything they understood. Life, green algae, reeds, even tiny fish, living creatures in a place once considered a biblical graveyard for all life. And then came the twist. The water wasn't just fresh, it was flowing, as if guided. Satellite imagery confirmed it. In just a few years, over 6,000 sinkholes have opened around the Dead Sea. Some swallow roads and buildings whole. Others fill with water. But these aren't just geological phenomena. What lies beneath the sinkholes is what's triggering an ancient alarm. Deep underground, reservoirs of fresh water are forming, seeping, pushing upward into the salt-soaked crust. And from this convergence, ecosystems are being born in real time. Microbes never catalogued before are thriving in these conditions. Some scientists believe they're primordial, unchanged for thousands of years. Others quietly suggest these are not natural at all. Across the world, Bible scholars turned their gaze back to Ezekiel 47, a prophecy almost 2,600 years old describing waters flowing east from the temple that heal even the sea where nothing can live. Ezekiel writes, "Swarms of living creatures will live wherever the river flows." The water flows into the Dead Sea and makes the salt water fresh. And now, that scripture reads less like metaphor and more like headline news. But this isn't just about strange water. Less than 5 kilometers away, archaeologists uncovered something chilling. In the Judean desert, deep inside a newly opened cave, a clay jar sealed with ancient wax was discovered. Inside, fragments of parchment. After painstaking restoration, a single legible line emerged, written in Paleo-Hebrew. It reads, "The waters will rise, and judgment will be seen in the valleys." Carbon dating places the scroll to around 100 BCE, the time of the Essenes, a sect obsessed with purification, prophecy, and preparing for the final battle. The Israeli Antiquities Authority has not released the full translation. Some sources claim it references the return of a dividing fire said to appear in the sky when the waters of death become living again. Days later, security footage from the same region captured a blinding flash over the Dead Sea. No lightning, no aircraft, no official explanation. Still think this is coincidence? Just 30 miles away, the Jordan River, once a modest shrinking stream, has surged in flow. Measurements from 2021 to now show a 47% increase in volume, despite declining rainfall. Hydrologists are baffled, yet local priests are not. In hushed tones, they're calling this the path clearing. And there's more. A small, otherwise unremarkable plant has begun growing along the southern shore. Botanists at first mistook it for a salt-resistant species of tamarisk, but genetic sequencing revealed it's a perfect match to a plant long thought extinct, known in Hebrew as Etz Chaim, the tree of life. A species mentioned only in myth, last referenced in the Talmudic era. Samples are under lock and key. Meanwhile, pilgrims are returning, not just tourists, but believers, prophets, even high-ranking clergy. They're not coming for photos. They're coming to collect vials of the new fresh water, claiming miraculous properties. A woman from Nazareth with degenerative bone disease walked unaided after submerging her legs. A boy with epilepsy had seizures cease for over 70 days after touching the water. No scientific explanation, no pharmaceutical reason, just silence. And under that silence, something is stirring. In late June, tremors rocked the Dead Sea Basin. Not earthquakes, but rhythmic pulses measured by deep-field seismometers. One every 36 minutes. Untraceable. Unlike any tectonic movement seen before. Some geologists call them heartbeat quakes, but theologians point to Revelation 16. And there came a great earthquake, such as was not, since men were upon the earth. Something is synchronizing, and it's growing louder. Across Orthodox, Catholic, and Messianic communities, talk of the Gate has re-emerged, an ancient belief that when the Dead Sea becomes alive, a doorway between realms opens. For centuries, this was allegory. Now, people are listening. Because in a remote Bedouin village near Mount Sodom, a shepherd found something buried beneath a collapsed sinkhole. It wasn't just stone or ruin. It was a gate, 7 feet high, formed of black basalt, carved with symbols not recognized by any known Middle Eastern culture. And, in the center, a sigil matching one found on the walls of Qumran, the site where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, a place known to the Essenes as the Camp of Final Light. The gate has since been moved. No photos have been released, but eyewitnesses claim that when unearthed, the air temperature dropped by 17 degrees within seconds. A sound, like rushing wind, came from beneath. And then, stillness. Not silence. Stillness. Something is coming through. The gate was sealed again within hours by military personnel, not archaeologists. No press, no statements. The only thing left behind was a scorched circle in the sand and the silence of a sky that suddenly felt watched. That same week, radiation spikes were detected 12 meters below the northern Dead Sea shore. Not nuclear, not cosmic. Localized. A pulsating heat signature emitting from a crystalline formation buried in salt rock. Israeli geologists attempted extraction, but their equipment short-circuited twice. Then came the reports. 3 members of the survey team developed sudden ocular burns, despite no exposure to light. One described it as like staring into a mirror reflecting something that isn't there. What they saw hasn't been disclosed. Then the Vatican made contact. A closed-door meeting was held in Jerusalem between Israeli officials, 2 Vatican emissaries, and a private team of linguists. According to leaked transport manifests, the Vatican delegation arrived with a sealed relic, marked Anathema 4. No such object exists in public inventory. But in obscure Vatican records, a 15th-century account references Anathema 4 as an artifact recovered from the well of the abyss, believed lost during the Crusades. 3 days after that meeting, the emissaries vanished from public view. But strange things continued above ground. In a monastery overlooking the Dead Sea, an elderly monk had been documenting the tides for over 40 years. He reported an unexplainable phenomenon. The moonlight, on certain nights, was no longer reflecting from the water, but from beneath it. as if something luminous was glowing under the Dead Sea. Infrared drones confirmed it. Oscillating waves of heat light, 40 meters below the southern basin, forming a perfect spiral every 19 hours and 46 minutes. No known thermal or tectonic explanation fits. But to those familiar with Jewish mysticism, that number isn't random. In Kabbalistic tradition, 1946 refers to the time of revealing, linked to the ancient Sephirot diagram of divine emanation. More than symbol, it's a map of access between realms. And then, it rained. In July, the desert skies opened in a flash flood unlike anything seen in decades. But the rain didn't behave naturally. Drops evaporated mid-air before reaching the ground. In multiple eyewitness videos, the rainfall seemed to bend away from the sea, as if repelled, as if the atmosphere itself was protecting the Dead Sea from contact. And yet, 3 days later, new freshwater springs appeared again, only deeper, colder, and louder. Hydrophones placed in the springs picked up a low, continuous hum, a frequency at 39.17 Hertz, nearly identical to the resonance once recorded inside the Holy of Holies chamber beneath the Temple Mount, a resonance known in theological physics as the tetragrammaton frequency, a theorized vibrational key believed to match the ancient name of God. This wasn't background noise. It was deliberate, patterned, pulsing like breath. And it's not just Israel. In southern Italy, a small village near Mount Vesuvius reported a blinding white cloud that hovered silently for 2 hours before vanishing. No smoke, no ash, just one residue left behind, high traces of sodium, sulfur, and Dead Sea salt. The Mediterranean is over 1,000 kilometers away. There's no natural current that could carry such particles. At the same time, seismic buoys in the Red Sea picked up what they first assumed was a submarine signal, a clicking, almost speech-like sequence. But when the audio was run through pattern recognition software, a troubling phrase emerged, in ancient Aramaic. The translation? The stones are awake. By now, panic was quiet, contained, but spreading. The UN held a closed emergency session under the guise of climate anomalies. What leaked from that meeting was a single satellite image, heavily redacted, showing a fissure running the length of the Dead Sea floor. A clean split, hundreds of meters long, with no seismic event to cause it. But from that rift, one thing is clear. Temperature spikes consistent with geothermal discharge, and something colder rising from beneath. And still, the prophecies keep aligning. In 2023, a rabbi in Safed claimed to receive a vision, a voice calling him to count the stars above the Salt Sea. He did. On the night of his vision, astronomers confirmed an unexplained celestial phenomenon. 12 new lights briefly appeared near the constellation Aquila, above the Dead Sea's horizon. Each lasted just 3.7 seconds. Triangulated, they formed a perfect Hebrew word, shuv, return. The footage was analyzed by astrophysicists in Europe, who remain baffled. This is not satellite flare, one said. It's not natural reflection. It's intentional symmetry. Theological historians took it further. They matched the 12 points of light to a diagram from the 1st century Book of Signs, an apocryphal text describing the arrival of the second waters, a holy event that would occur when heaven and salt kiss without wind. In that same chapter, the book warns, when the fish leap from the grave sea, the sun will reverse in its tower. And 2 weeks ago, fishermen near Neve Zohar captured something unprecedented. 4 fish, never before seen by modern biology, flopping along the rocky edge of a salt pond. Not just alive, but breathing in salinity levels that should have killed them instantly. Genetic testing showed anomalies, dormant DNA sequences similar to ancient species found only in fossil records. Then, without warning, the fish died simultaneously, within seconds of one another, and their eyes turned a solid, glassy white before dissolving. Experts are now investigating whether the salinity itself is changing in composition, not just volume. There's early evidence the salt is transforming chemically, becoming something unknown. And just this morning, another gate was discovered. Not by researchers, but by children. Playing near a collapsed salt cliff, they stumbled on a perfectly rectangular slab protruding from the earth. Not stone, not metal. Something in between. Smooth, reflective. Carved with a symbol no one yet recognizes, a spiral wrapped around an eye. The site is now under military lockdown. And the sound? The same low hum. Louder now. Every 19 hours and 46 minutes. It returns. On the 19th pulse, something shifted. Motion sensors placed at the second gate recorded a tremor. Too precise to be natural, too rhythmic to be seismic. Soil samples directly beneath the monolith began to rise. Not crack or fall, but rise as if being pushed from below. And then, the impossible. The salt crust, so dense it hadn't moved in centuries, breathed. Time-stamped footage shows the ground expanding and contracting by less than a centimeter. But the implications? Uncontainable. Within 36 hours, 3 separate blackouts occurred in the area, each accompanied by a high-frequency distortion picked up on nearby ham radios. One operator, unaware of the events, recorded the interference and posted it online. When slowed down, the waveform reveals a pattern, a voice. The signal analysts ran it through spectral mapping. The phrase repeated 4 times. Do not break the third seal. No one knows what the first 2 were. Inside Israel's Geological Core Analysis Unit, a confidential briefing was leaked showing pressure readings deep below the Earth's crust, directly beneath the Dead Sea. The anomaly? A subterranean void, nearly 3 kilometers wide. Not a cave, a chamber, surrounded by what researchers called structured heat pockets, consistent with ancient metallurgy. Temperatures reaching 2,000 degrees Celsius, yet no magma, no volcanic activity. And at the center of this void, a constant vibration, measurable only in harmonic resonance. A tone that, when digitally translated into visuals, forms a pattern strikingly similar to the menorah of the temple. But upside down, from Jerusalem to Geneva, whispers are growing among theological circles. The phrase resurfacing over and over, the reversal has begun, and now the world is responding. In Washington, a redacted intelligence brief referred to the region as a zone of unquantifiable threat. Several Allied satellites were suddenly retasked, all pointed toward a tight grid just south of the Dead Sea. Civilian GPS in that region now glitches. Devices freeze, compass readings spiral. Pilots are instructed to divert by 30 nautical miles. But what's more disturbing is what was discovered by accident. A Swedish drone hobbyist operating outside the no-fly zone captured infrared footage over the water. Within 8 seconds of flight, his feed was interrupted. When recovered from internal storage, the final frame shows something beneath the sea. Moving. A perfect oval, at least 80 meters long, gliding just beneath the salt water's crust. It emitted no heat, just shadow. Marine biologists were consulted. No known aquatic animal, no geological formation, and no submarine technology fits the profile. One analyst at Stockholm's Maritime Institute simply wrote, "This object is displacing mass without leaving a wake." And just before the feed cut, something blinked. In nearby Jordan, Bedouin tribes reported strange animal behavior. Camels refusing to drink, staring toward the water for hours. Packs of wild dogs howling at empty salt flats. One herder claims he saw a column of smoke without fire rising from the Dead Sea and disappearing mid-air. At first, no one believed him, but thermal drones recorded an anomaly just hours later, something rising vertically, fast, cold, and without visible form. What they tracked was not smoke, but pressure loss, like a vacuum, opening and sealing. Then came the sandstorm. It wasn't on any forecast. It wasn't seasonal. It rolled in without warning, dense, red, electric. Local weather stations recorded wind patterns flowing inward, toward the sea, not outward. And in the storm's center, zero movement. A dead calm surrounded by chaos. Meteorologists were silenced. No news coverage followed, but two satellite images taken minutes apart show a darkened circle at the eye of the storm, with a brief, bright flare. Experts say this could be an ion burst. Theologists say it's the eye of the deep. But it didn't end there. Hours later, tremors were reported across 7 other salt lakes worldwide: Bolivia, Utah, Ethiopia, China, India, each showing similar changes in water behavior, magnetic anomalies, and inexplicable animal migrations. As if the Dead Sea was not alone, but first. And in a desert just outside Al-Azraq, Jordan, a team of geophysicists studying fault lines stumbled upon something buried in the sand. An obsidian tablet, perfectly flat, perfectly smooth, warm to the touch. Despite no sunlight for days. It vibrated faintly. Embedded in its center, 7 etched circles connected by lines that match, exactly, a medieval Kabbalistic diagram titled Sephirot of Unveiling. One circle was glowing. On that same night, local children described a dream. The same dream. A man in white robes walking across the water, mouth sewn shut, pointing downward. And under the surface? Eyes. Thousands of them, blinking in unison. Not a vision, not metaphor. Observation. And now, silence isn't protection, it's signal. The hum is no longer a whisper. It's a call. Heard not just through instruments, but in the bones of those nearby. Migraines, nausea, night terrors, a rising frequency that only some can detect. Most turn away. But those who stay, those who listen, describe it not as sound, but memory. A memory we were never meant to carry. And beneath it all, something is knocking. The knocking came first, as a faint vibration in the desert air, barely perceptible. Then it grew, a deep, rhythmic pounding felt in the chest and bones of those who dared to linger near the ancient gates. No instrument could capture it. No camera could record it. But every pulse sent ripples across the salt flats, fracturing the crust with tiny luminous fractures that glowed like veins beneath the earth's skin. Suddenly, a fissure split open near the southern shore. From its depths, a column of water shot upward, pure, crystal clear, but shimmering with iridescent colors no eye had ever witnessed in nature. Within that torrent, shapes twisted, vaguely human, impossibly tall and fleeting, like reflections caught between worlds. The water cascaded back into the sea, but where it touched, salt crystals dissolved. Grass sprouted along the shorelines, green shoots piercing the barren crust. The Dead Sea was bleeding life. Scientists scrambled to collect samples. Chemical analysis revealed something else. An unknown isotope, unstable yet persistent, pulsing with energy. It resonated with the very frequencies measured in the temple relics found years before, as if the earth itself had become a living conduit of ancient power. In Jerusalem, high above the Western Wall, a sudden tremor cracked a centuries-old stone. Within the fissure, a small metallic object was revealed, a perfect cube inscribed with Hebrew letters, glowing faintly with an ethereal light. Attempts to remove it triggered a sharp pulse felt across the city, and for one terrifying moment, all electronics shut down. Phones, cameras, power grids, dead. And then they snapped back as if nothing had happened. This cube, unknown in history and physics, vanished from sight moments later, absorbed back into the stone as if swallowed by time itself. On the opposite side of the world, seismic arrays detected synchronized pulses, exactly matching the Dead Sea rhythm, emanating from under Antarctica's ice sheets. A vast chamber, long thought stable, began to shift. Satellite imagery showed cracks forming in the ice, revealing a lake beneath, glowing faintly with the same spectral colors observed in the desert water columns. The Earth was awakening, and it was global. Back at the Dead Sea, the skies darkened inexplicably, blotting out stars for days. Yet when the clouds parted, a new constellation hung low on the horizon, a perfect mirror of the ancient menorah, its 7 lights burning cold blue. The phenomenon was recorded worldwide, baffling astronomers and igniting fervent debate among mystics. Local shepherds whispered that the stars had fallen to rest above the salt. Children born in the shadow of this night carry strange marks, whorls on their palms, glowing faintly under moonlight. But the final, irreversible sign came in silence. Underneath the waters, a colossal structure revealed itself, an impossibly vast labyrinth of basalt and glass, illuminated by a light source unseen but palpable. Divers sent to explore returned shaken, unable to describe what they saw. Shapes shifting in and out of reality, hallways folding upon themselves, echoes of voices speaking in tongues lost to time. One diver disappeared without trace. Another went mad, speaking only of the gatekeepers and a message carved into the abyss. Prepare the way. The end is beginning. And so the Dead Sea, once a grave, became a threshold. From the depths, an ancient presence stirs, neither dead nor alive, neither bound by earthly law nor distant myth. The waters, the stones, the very air pulse with a secret, older than humanity. What has been unleashed is no longer waiting. It is watching. And somewhere, beyond the edge of sight and sound, it is knocking once more.